What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR and Bitcoin today. So Bitcoin did take a nice tumble down all the way down to around 109. We'll keep watching it over the next couple weeks and days. Definitely keep you posted on the Discord as well with live updates on what I think is happening. Right now, MSTR did close at 343. Post market, it's sitting at 340.50. We did find a little bit of a bounce off this key level at 324. And you can see that wick here on the weekly. And then we ended up gapping down. We closed at 357, and then we ended up opening at 344. Today, pretty much a sideways day after the open, I would say. We pushed up a little bit to 350, down to 338, but ended up finishing at that 343 mark. Like I said, pretty much a sideways day after the open. But if you include the open, then of course that was a negative 4.17 day. And like I said previously, if Bitcoin's not ramping up and getting any kind of significant move to the upside, you have to expect downside on MSTR if Bitcoin's not rising up. That's just the reality of it. We always know that even when Bitcoin does rally up, that due to the nature of MSTR and all the moving parts that are part of it, that even when Bitcoin does increase in value, sometimes MSTR may lag behind or might see some kind of sell-off depending on what was happening prior. Like I said, there's so many moving pieces to a stock like MSTR. It's not like your standard stock. So it's obviously tied to Bitcoin, but it has those extra components attached to it. And if you've been around MSTR long enough, you know what all those components are. But anyways, to the charts, we are underneath this downward sloping trend line. It looks like we were trying to get a little bit of momentum and a pushback to this zone, and it looks like we just absolutely fell right off. Based off of this candle, it was actually, that was a pretty bullish sign to try and at least go and retest this trend line, and we didn't even do that. We just gapped down and just traded sideways on the day. Low volume kind of day. We'll see where it takes us for the rest of the week, but after closing back underneath here with this weekly candle, we've been saying that we should expect some kind of just sideways chop, kind of in the middle of nowhere until we finally make some kind of decision, whether that be to the upside, breakout, retest, and push up, or chop sideways and then eventually fall underneath, retest, and then continue that move down further. Like I said, it's going to be varying on Bitcoin. And we all know that Bitcoin normally doesn't do the best in September, and the stock market in general doesn't do the best in September. We have had some exceptions in 17 and 2021. So we'll see if that happens here in 2025. Right now, though, it does. If we continue this momentum, then August and September might not be the best months. So we'll see if it holds true as to what it normally does. And when you take a look here on the daily and you see the volume, you can see we were sitting at around 10.9 million for the volume. And the day prior on this nice engulfing candle was 17.39 million. So it was almost half of what we had on the previous trading day. And the standard average is roughly around 11 to 12 million, at least lately. So we are slightly underneath that point. And when we take a look at the SMAs, we did find a bounce off the 50. Weak SMA, we got that strong move to the upside. And then we came back, touched it again, or we're about to touch it again. And we'll see how price reacts there. Hopefully we get that bounce. If not, then I would expect a move down. And if we get that close back underneath this moving average, that's going to open up the idea of a push down further. But this is a very strong level in confluence with this key level of support. So we may get another bounce and at least try to retest this level one more time before making some kind of decision. And on the daily, not surprised, we found rejection off the 200-day. We talked about this as well. We always talk about it on every single level that we break. You broke underneath this 200-day SMA. We said it's going to increase the odds of us retesting and seeing lower levels. And right now we're still in the middle of the move, but that's kind of what it's looking like for now. It looks like this could have potentially been the retest, and now we gapped down. So we'll see where the momentum continues. Hopefully this is a V-shaped recovery, because it was looking pretty, promising after this nice engulfing candle. Maybe thinking that we get a V-shaped recovery and kind of reclaim all of this and maybe close back above the 20 and the 50. But right now, we're still underneath this 200. So momentum's still taking us to lower levels. And when you look on a fib perspective, that was a bounce off the 382 and rejection, which is a continuation to the downside. 382 is a very strong level for a continuation. On the weekly RSI, it looks like we ended up getting the double top that we were speaking of. Once we started to see this dwindle down a little bit, we were starting to talk like, oh, maybe we could get that double top, and that's exactly what ended up playing out to the T. We'll see if it goes down even further. But on top of that, you have this leg that has been creating this established move to the downside, as you can see. So maybe we come back, retest it, hopefully break it. If not, then it would be a continuation of the move. And it could look something like this, where we push up here and then continue that move to lower levels. On the daily, we'll see where we end up landing, but this could be some kind of double bottom, potentially. We typically do see some kind of reversal within that 35 to around 30 mark. It looks like we did touch around 31 or so, and we started to create higher highs and higher lows. Very, very short-lived, though. It's only been from August 19th. So it hasn't been too long, but we are starting to see a little bit of a uptrend. We'll see if it can continue. We are going to have a little bit of resistance above our head at this yellow moving average, sitting at around 42.25 on the RSI for the daily. So be aware of that. We already got one rejection. We'll see what it does when we come back up to it. And we are seeing a key level of rejection right here. That's confluence with this downward sloping trend line. And this gray zone right here, which is another key resistance level. So you have things stacked above price right now that could suppress any kind of move to the upside. On the weekly MACD, we're increasingly going down. The momentum is just increasing little by little. As you can see, a pretty steady trend to the downside. And you can see the blue starting to kind of roll over a little bit deeper. But we're still in bullish territory, even though the momentum is bearish. And on the daily, we're bearish, but we are starting to lose some of that steam to the downside, and it's starting to slowly increase back up, starting to look similar to this move. Hopefully we can get a nice green hill like that, or one of these over here, and get the green flip and see this blue curl back above the orange. Here on the weekly for Bitcoin, as we know, we found our rejection off of these key levels from the tops of 2021. You can see that rejection multiple times. And here on the weekly, we found rejection, and then 3 weeks in a row have now been a downturn. And this last week, we actually closed within the wicks here, but still above this key level. But now we just broke this candle right here. The body of this candle just broke the wick right here at 110.615. So that could potentially indicate lower prices, but at the same time, we are still holding a key level of support. We have support right here, this entire zone. Although I have it drawn out here, it's really this entire zone all the way down to like 108. That could be the next level of support, and also lines up with these wicks over here. So this entire area is going to be a key level that we want to hold, and it looks like we're holding it for now, but the momentum is definitely starting to roll over. And if we were to get a daily close underneath this zone, that's going to definitely indicate lower prices to potentially touching that 106 mark. Maybe we find a little bit of rejection around this area here on this white line, or support as we go down. But if we get that close underneath this zone, like I said, it could indicate lower prices. It's just going to increase the odds more than anything. That's really all these things do when you break levels. It just increases the odds. And when we take a look here on the fib, you can see off of this level, we surpassed the 382, but we never made it to the 0.5, and we continue that move down. So this is a bearish continuation. So now we're kind of on this next leg. We don't know where the turnaround point will be, but if we were to say this is the hypothetical turnaround point, then maybe we could potentially retest this level before making a decision if we want to break, retest and go higher, or find rejection and continue the move even further down. Of course, it's going to be depending on sentiment around Bitcoin, global liquidity, so many other things. The Federal Reserve. We do have an inflation report coming out on Friday, so that's going to be a big deal. We have initial jobless claims on Thursday, so be aware of those key reports that'll be coming out, especially the Friday report. That's going to be a big one because the Fed has a dual mandate for low unemployment and stable prices. So inflation and unemployment reports, that's pretty much what they're going to be looking at and making their decisions. And that's where you'll see the odds swaying back and forth. Currently sitting at 87% chance of a cut coming up in September. And I'm sure the markets are already starting to factor that in. So things are already starting to shift around, and we'll see where it takes us. Now on the weekly SMAs, we almost made it down to the 20, but it's sitting at 108, and we currently made it down to 109, and we're sitting at 110. So if we do make it to 108, 200, then we will be bouncing off the 20-week SMA. And on the daily, we're still far away from the 200, but the 20 is curling down on the 50. So we'll see if that continues that move even further down or not, or if we can start to see a continuation to the upside. Now, global liquidity is still ramping up. When you take a look here at the 12-week, it's still showing that we had that major drawdown, and this thing is starting to creep back up. So this should show some kind of continuation of momentum in Bitcoin and risk on assets throughout the remainder of 2025, potentially, maybe after September, or maybe this is our drawdown that we're going to see. We'll see, of course. But be aware of that. Global liquidity is still increasing. If the dollar continues to drop, then this will continue to rise. And we could see a massive spike on global liquidity if the Fed were to start increasing their balance sheet. So even if the Fed cuts rates, that doesn't mean that they increase their balance sheet yet. So they're still slowly decreasing it little by little. But once they begin to increase it, that's when the true QE begins, and that's when they really start to stimulate the economy again, and things can really start to kick back up. But we are inching closer to that point, and that will more than likely kick up our odds of having alt season. That's pretty much all I have for you guys here on MSTR and Bitcoin. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe. Check out the WHOP. The link is in the description. You can follow the link tree, and then you can join from there. Just check it out, see what you guys are interested in. And I'll see you guys in the next one.